and welcome to our first Throwback Thursday video for Thursday, January 9th. So let's launch right into it. What do we do this week? So I told you in our Monday meeting, we're going to be focusing on preparing for our independent read project, going over some new procedures, and practicing some writing techniques. And our grammar lesson was connected to those writing techniques this week. So on Monday, we got new seats. We worked on a journal with a quote from researcher Malcolm Gladwell. I re-graded any journals that were redone over break. I gave you 15 minutes of MemBean. I went over our Monday meeting stuff and our new procedures. Like with Classcraft, I gave you an introduction to Classcraft. And we looked over the Scope article. It's the last article in your most recent Scope magazine that is titled The History of Trampolines. And on Google Classroom, you had an assignment attached with that. Tuesday, our word this week was, our term rather, was intrinsic motivation. So parents, ask your student if they remember what intrinsic motivation is and if they have any. We finished our Classcraft setup. We had our first random event. Again, parents, there's more information about that on my website, or you can ask your student to let you know about that. We did our No Red Ink lesson. We went over misplaced and dangling modifiers. We watched a couple videos, did a couple of examples, and then we went to the library where students had pretty much 45 minutes to work on No Red Ink, their Scope article, and reading their independent read book. So they had quite a lot of work time. I was able to work one-on-one with several students, especially with some of these more complicated No Red Ink exercises. Then on Wednesday, we had a journal where you had to explain the difference between someone who is living and someone who is just existing. Then we did a quick review of those modifiers, and we talked about wordiness and thesis statements, our main ideas. We went over some examples and MemBean of that as well. Then students had another 15 minutes of work time where they could work on either MemBean or their No Red Ink assignment. Then we read a play in class from our Scope magazine called The Interlopers. We talked about interlopers being people who are trespassing or are not wanted or in a place they shouldn't be. I encourage you, parents, to ask your students what the twist ending was in our story. It was quite surprising for many of us. And we talked about irony. We talked about nature. And then we took a quiz over the play. And the quiz was a really short quiz, 6 multiple choice questions and a short answer question. I'm still grading those. I'm aiming to get those done in the next day or two. So be checking out your Google Classroom for that. Then we had a little bit of just read time at the end where we're just reading. It could have been your independent read book or anything else that you wanted to read. Then on Thursday, we had our journal where we were talking about rejection and how we could turn rejection into a positive thing. Then students had to read a fiction story from their Scope magazine called Good Enough. Just like their trampoline history of the trampoline article, there's a chart on Google Classroom where they can answer the questions that accompany the story. I actually wound up having to leave a little early on Thursday to take my daughter to the doctor. So students had essentially their block period to work on these assignments. So they knew they had time to do MemBean, their No Red Ink, and their 2 Scope article assignments, as well as do any reading that they may need to do for their independent read project. So let's take a look at, let's go back here, expect for Friday. There we go. So of course, we're going to have our journal and our mindset moment. Many of you forget to do your mindset moment. This is where you write down how you used growth mindset this week. So take a moment right now and think about, hey, how did I use growth mindset? Or if you don't think that you actually used it, how could you have used it? And then we're going to take our MemBean quiz like we've done every Friday since the beginning of school. Then we're going to take our No Red Ink quiz, which I'm going to get to in more detail in just a moment. And then, ignore that. We're not taking the interloper quiz. We're going to go over it, though. We already took the interloper quiz, but we are going to go over at least the multiple choice portion, and I'm going to answer any questions about that. We're going to go through an example of the independent reading project that's going to be due at the end of the month, and I'm going to give you some time to do some reading as well tomorrow. So what you should have turned in by the end of the day today are the scope article charts. There's actually 2 on Google Classroom, your No Red Ink and your MinBean. So quick things real fast as we wrap up here for tomorrow, in case you've forgotten. On your MinBean dashboard, you can go here, look at all the words you've been studying. So you'll see this little box that says all learning sessions. You click on one of these links here, it'll bring you to the same page. And it'll show you all the words that you have started learning, that are making good progress, that are almost ready, and that are ready for your target date, meaning that you should really know these words. So I would just go through and do a quick review. Choose a random word. Pick one here. Go to the page.
Intercept.
Read through the context. Answer the question. Can you answer it? If you can't, try to work with the page some more and figure out, what does this word mean and how is it used? You can also write these words down on a piece of paper. I have told you from the beginning, writing these down will really help you remember them more. Plus, I often let you use those notes on your quizzes. So you also, speaking of quizzes, you can look at any quiz that we've taken this year. If you scroll all the way down on your dashboard, you're going to see quiz section here, and you can click on any of these and look at what you missed the last time or the last few times, what words you're still struggling with, and that way you can study those words a little more closely. For No Red Ink, you're going to be doing exercises that are identical to the ones that you encountered in your activity this week, in your assignment this week. So we're going to be looking at modifiers, misplaced, and dangling, and we're going to be looking at wordy main ideas and thesis statements. So let's take a look at this one. It says, tired after rock climbing, the hammock looked like the perfect spot for Gail Hawthorne to rest. So remember what I told you. When you have sentences that have an introductory phrase like this one, tired after rock climbing, this introductory phrase is going to be describing whatever comes next. And in this case, what comes next is the hammock. So it's saying that the hammock was tired. And we know that's not what the author likely meant. So that is the answer here. The next one says, Pumbaa swung above the kindergartners holding onto the monkey bars. So what does this sentence suggest? Either Pumbaa was holding onto the monkey bars or the kindergartners were holding onto the monkey bars. So Pumbaa swung above the kindergartners holding onto the monkey bars. Well, I think that he was meaning that it was Pumbaa, but since holding onto the monkey bars is directly after kindergartners, then I think that's what the sentence is suggesting here, that the kindergartners were holding onto the monkey bars. On the seesaw, Harry Potter launched his teddy bear into the air. On the seesaw, Harry Potter. So this introductory phrase, talking about Harry Potter. So Harry Potter was on the seesaw. Hoping it gives us one of those wordy ones here. An unusual zookeeper, Ron Weasley's backpack was given to the monkey. Well, again, Ron Weasley's backpack is the thing that follows that introductory phrase. So that's what it's talking about here. So the backpack was an unusual zookeeper. Chasing after the runaway tricycle, Primrose Everdeen ended up at the Empire State Building. So chasing after the runaway tricycle, Primrose. So Primrose was chasing the tricycle. Remember on the wordy ones, oh, here we go. I was hoping it was going to give us one. Video games are a creative art form. Therefore, the limitation of the amount of violence that games can depict is a form of censorship. I think that whole thing is a little bit wordy. So video games are a creative art form. Therefore, the limitation of the amount of violence. I think that is going to be our answer here. That video games can depict is a form of censorship. So we're going to get rid of, we're going to need to rephrase this part of the sentence. My video is going to cut off here, but if you need any more help, please let me know before we start the quiz.